New day and a new verse, so I thought we could dig in. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those of you around the world who are celebrating it. Let's get into the Bible, shall we? Verses 5 through 8. Those who think they can do it their own way end up obsessed with measuring their own moral muscle, but never get around to exercising it in real life. Those who trust God's actions in them find that God's Spirit is in them, living and breathing God. Obsession with self in these matters is a dead end. Attention to God leads us out into the open, into a spacious, free life. Focusing on self is the opposite of focusing on God. Anyone completely absorbed in self ignores God, ends up thinking more about self than God. That person ignores who God is and what he is doing, and God isn't pleased at being ignored. And I was digging into this verse, and I was kind of looking at it, it's like, well, of course God's not pleased about being ignored. Nobody is. It's like, well, I'm trying to talk with you. And then well, of course people are going to get frustrated. God more so when he's omnipresent. And as the creator of all things, his influence is seen everywhere if we want to see it. That isn't the idea that, it's the other idea of the whole moral muscle. And it's like, well, only the world really expects perfection. Jesus doesn't expect us to be perfect. He knows we're not. He says we're perfected in him. And so in getting the opportunity to dig into him and dig into his word and let him dig into us, we're able to go past the idea of, well, I'm not perfect enough for God. Well, God doesn't want you. I mean, he knows we're not perfect. He died for us in an imperfect state because he wants us, not the ritual or the flexed moral muscle. Because as I was thinking about that whole idea, I started getting this idea of, can a tiger change its stripes? And no, a tiger cannot change its stripes. But in this one, with Christianity at the very least, God working in us, the tiger isn't changing its stripes. The tiger is simply surrendering all to the point where the stripes are changed into something else. You don't change the stripes. We don't change the stripes. We are changed. By his stripes, we are healed. And I know, different kind of stripes. But it's that same kind of idea to me, that when we focus on trying to change ourselves, we can't. We just become obsessed with self. If we try to dig into him, though, and let him be the one to shape us, then it's not a matter of flexing morality muscle. It's surrendering to the only being in existence who actually can change us, because it's the potter's hand that created us in the first place. And although keeping this separate of 5:8 and then 9 through 11, in my own Bible, I have the two highlighted together for a reason, because it is this idea, to me at least, of where our focus is, in whom we dwell, where we dwell. And so if we dwell in God, then his life in us, he moves. If we're obsessed with self and obsessed with our own moral muscle, we're never going to get anywhere. Not just because, well, our moral muscles may be completely wrong. And there is one section of the word that makes me think about that honestly, and it's Ezra and Nehemiah. Because Ezra and Nehemiah strikes me as strikes me as a section of the word that, it's kind of a rise and then a letdown moment, because during the Second Temple period, they were trying to, at least the creation of the Second Temple period, around that Ezra and Nehemiah area, they were trying to do it focusing on morality and missing the point entirely. And the one that always comes to mind with that, bless you, Kat, is first and foremost marriages. Because in Ezra, it says, well, you weren't supposed to marry people of land, so you have to divorce them. But in divorcing them and trying to follow one law, which is misread, you create an orphan and a widow, potentially also an immigrant. And it strikes me that since the word says those are the ones to protect, that divorcing somebody because it's against that one kind of morality strikes me as, an exercise in missing the point. That just because we see something as morally good doesn't mean it is. And that it's needing God to tell us what that looks like. Because he has in his word. He has told you, O human, what he wants. Love, righteousness, goodness, living in that way. And it strikes me that we need to give up the need to be perfect so that we can be perfected in relationship. But I'm going to dig in tomorrow with verses 9 through 11, a little later today, in the idea of judgment. So see you then.